So I come from a generation that did martial arts because it was the thing to do. I didn't get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because there was a bunch of likes. There was no money in it. I still argue, and we'll get to that later, that there is no money in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, only for a select few. Statistically speaking, only about 1% of the world population does martial arts.
Hi, this is the Social Jello with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Jello with Angelo show.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Social Jello with Angelo podcast. I'm here with Claude Lawson, Kajukenbo black belt and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I'm also a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and an MMA coach and Kajukenbo instructor coming out of Japan. Before the algorithm, when training was about the art, not the clout. Now, why am I talking about this? You know, it's just weird. I have Claude here because Claude has been Cloud. See, I knew this was Cloud. Now you're Cloud. Now you're a fucking Final Fantasy character. Okay, so
That's funny.
right,
I love it.
So, you know, man, not even 30 seconds. I had a guess completely. Oh, you messed up my name. Like, hey, man, I just met you and I messed up your name. I've known Claude for years and I fucked up his name. Cloud.
We're good.
Fuck.
We're good. We can go with Cloud.
So either way. All right. I digress. No, I lost all the listeners. What the hell are these guys talking about? All right. So I come from a generation that did martial arts because it was the thing to do. I didn't get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because there was a bunch of likes. There was no money in it. I still argue, and we'll get to that later, that there is no money in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, only for a select few. Statistically speaking, only about 1% of the world population does martial arts. We're not even getting to the teaching part. Statistically speaking, it's like less than maybe 2% of the population actually does martial arts. All right, so I looked it up real quick just to because I can. So 5% of the U.S. population, that's roughly 18 million people, practice martial arts, right? We're not even getting to the teaching part. And in the world population, about 3% of the population practice martial arts. So that being said, there's not a lot of people that practice martial arts, but the internet makes it look like everybody does, especially with the algorithm. If you practice martial arts, it's going to have other martial artists and you're going to connect, which is great. It's a networking thing, but it can get really easy to get things convoluted. And one of the things that I think it becomes convoluted is this whole idea that you can get popular doing martial arts. And it's not that it's not true. It is true. But at the same time, there's some noise in the middle of all this. And I come from a generation that we didn't have that. We didn't do martial arts to become popular. In fact, if you told people you did martial arts, and back in my day, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was so unpopular that the place in my town that taught it was just like a plain wall. It just said Jiu-Jitsu/Judo on it. It didn't even advertise Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because they knew that people didn't know what it was. So they threw Judo on there. And then when you walked inside, you'd end up finding people who actually taught Jeet-Kune-Do. They were actually Jeet-Kune-Do practitioners who ended up also cross-training in BJJ. And they didn't even put JKD on the door for the same reason, like the marketing, right? They're getting their asses kicked in the 80s by Taekwondo schools. Every block was a Taekwondo school. Fast forward 30, 40 years, now every block it's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, which makes people think, oh, well, so if I go on my Instagram and I show someone how to do a triangle or I do a flying armbar, then I'm going to get all this attention. So I want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I want to become an influencer and start talking quick and put on a rash guard or a tank top. Just kidding. They don't wear tank tops. Put on a rash guard and start giving you advice on how to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And you have this whole new generation of martial artists who are chasing clout, or the idea of popularity, social currency, which brings me to my second point that I saw recently. It was Denzel Washington in an interview when he was asked, what would you do? How do you feel about cancel culture? And his response was, what's that? And then she had to break down, cancel culture is when society online decides that they're not going to follow you anymore and you lose your followers. He's like, followers, the only person who can cancel me is God. You shouldn't be trying to follow other people's opinions. He said, if I followed what other people thought of me, I would never get anything done. And he went on this rant about how essentially leaders don't follow. That was another thing he put in there, which I thought was really interesting. But he comes from that same generation, a generation of people that didn't do things because an algorithm was influencing what they were going to do. So that being said, I'm sure you come from a similar generation, right? Like what motivated you to get into martial arts? Let's start with that.
I was 5 years old, and my father was stationed in Thailand at the end of I believe the Vietnam War and all that good stuff, you know. And he was taking martial arts over there, and he called back and told my mom, "Hey, get him into something." We were watching Bruce Lee and all that stuff at that time, and I wanted to be just like Dad. So me and Mom went down to an Ishin Ryu school on MacDill Air Force Base, and we joined up. And I wanted to be like my father, and I wanted to do the things I saw Bruce Lee do, especially back then. That's what drew me to martial arts. Jiu-jitsu, I started jiu-jitsu in 1994. And
okay. And what drew you to that? Like, how'd you end up?
Actually, the UFC talk was around that time, and everybody was talking about it, this thing that was coming out, this fights that everybody wanted to see. And I can't remember what year the first UFC was.
1991?
Was it 91 or 92?
Wait a second. UFC 1. UFC 1, 1993.
93. So I watched the first UFC on VHS, VHS tape, and I was like, wow. And then I caught another one, the second one. Anyway, the whole thing is watching those tapes. I was like, okay, we're lacking a little bit because we were at kickboxing and Kajukenbo school, boxing, kickboxing, and Kajukenbo school. And I was like, we're lacking on the ground. Nobody really did groundwork, and I never really got into wrestling. So I had a friend of mine, come to my instructor's school, and he was taking jiu-jitsu at college. And he brought it in, and we started learning it on carpet covered concrete floors.
Ouch.
Exactly. So that's what got me into that. So I started in 94, and I thought it was something great to add because I wasn't well versed on the ground at the time. But again, like you mentioned, there were no other jiu-jitsu schools in Abilene, Texas. And when I went to San Antonio to visit my parents or any place else, there weren't any jiu-jitsu schools at that time. They were few and far between. The only place you really found jiu-jitsu was mainly in California.
Yeah.
And depending on where you were.
And I was in California, which I said there was a place. But see, so all the martial artists in the area knew that they were teaching Brazilian jiu-jitsu there because they were martial artists.
Right.
And they were doing the Gracie Challenge, but they weren't even calling it the Gracie Challenge. My friend who showed me UFC 1, who was the karate guy, and I've talked about this in the show before,
Right.
He said, hey, man, you really want to test yourself? Those guys will take on any challengers. You can walk in there and challenge them, and they'll take you on. They have this challenge thing going on. He was talking about the Gracie Challenge, but he didn't know that.
He didn't know it.
Because it wasn't being talked about. He just said they'll take on anyone. They'll do the jiu-jitsu stuff to you. I'm like, did you do it? He's like, hell yeah, I did it. I'm like, how'd you do? He's like, I took out some of the guys, and then one of the guys got me on the ground, and I need to work on my ground game. And they said the same kind of thing. He was a karate guy, but he was big, dude. That guy was big.
Big guy.
He was a big guy. Dominican, ex-military, about 240.
Whew.
240. So when he says he took down some of the guys, it probably was not good for them because he was
size and weight it adds some difficulty.
Eventually, I guess one of the guys got him, but
yeah.
he told me they had skills. They had skills. You should check it out. I'm like, all right, well, if the guy who's 240 is saying that they're tough, I don't think I need to go test myself there. Maybe I need to work on some things. I was like 16,
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to work on a bunch of grown men to beat my ass. I'm more worried about getting shot. That's why I'm doing martial. That's it again. Why are we doing martial arts? I was more worried about getting shot, stabbed, or jumped.
Yes.
Being jumped on the top of that list, being stabbed, Second, being shot third, mostly because I wasn't in a gang. So the best way not to get shot is to avoid gangs, which
Yeah.
is sounds easier on paper than in practicality.
See,
But
that kept me training because I got jumped in Minneapolis on the way to my girlfriend's house. That kept me training because it helped, believe it or not, it helped out a lot and it helped me get on I was waiting on the bus. It helped me get on the bus and get away.
oh, okay. So you already had
Yeah.
training by the time you got jumped.
Oh, yeah.
I did it in reverse order. I got jumped and then I started
And
training.
then you went, it's a good
And
reason.
so, but I already knew how to fight, but I never formally trained. It was just all I already knew how to throw a punch, and I already had I had a few schoolyard brawls before I was 12. I got jumped when I was 12, so I had my first fight, like, because the kids in our neighborhood were always just brawling for fun. Like
Yeah.
that was just it was the 80s, it was that the thing to do. Not a lot of my poor neighborhood. I don't think I had a Nintendo till way later, and I had limited hours. My parents would let me play video games all day. They're like, "You can play video games for 30 minutes, and you got to go outside and play."
That's
And so,
right.
like, so
Outside.
and going out, yeah, going outside and playing usually meant, but my group of friends, and we'd end up just play fighting.
Hmm.
We didn't, but so that wasn't training, but it kind of was because by the time I had my first real fight, where someone actually took a swing on me when I was 9, I knocked him out with a right hook. So like and it was 9. It's a kid stuff. It was kid
Yeah.
stuff. I don't count this stuff. Like I count stuff that happened after 18.
After that. Yeah.
But so yeah, like the whole idea of getting into martial arts was a completely different rubric from what I see online. I see a lot of people getting into martial arts, asking questions. I saw one guy on BJJ forum like, "Hey, if I start training in BJJ now, how much longer do you think till I'll be good enough to participate in the worlds?" Right. So like the entire framework of even and the goals that people have for doing martial arts is just vastly different. Vastly different.
Very much so. And the thing that you mentioned that about going, when can I go to the Worlds or Naga or do whatever? There was a guy, I think he got to blue belt. And he was an influencer online, and he competed, and he won a bunch of medals as a beginner, white belt, and then he stopped and became an influencer. But he's got a bunch of belts that he shows that he did. He's got all these pictures and everything, and he shows everybody that look, I won worlds, I won this, I won that. And I'm sitting there going, but you don't compete anymore. You're done. So you specifically did it so that you could post about it for clout. For clout.
Yep.
And that's the thing that's crazy. And people that don't know any better don't know any better.
No. And then like and he's a friend of me of mine online, and I'm nothing against him. Hey, you know what?
Right.
I get it. You have to make money. I'm not exactly criticizing this. I'm just socially deconstructing this concept. And if you watch my show, Social Jello stands for social psychology, which is a degree I have. So when I see these concepts, when I see a community and a society building social currency in something, I really want to break it down. Oh, balloons. Okay, there you go. So I really
Was
want to
excited.
I was excited. I really want to break it down to explain to people what's happening. Or not only for people who are watching, but for myself. Like, this is what I see happening. And my friend Max Hugh, and he's a friend of mine on Facebook. I love him to death. I love what he's doing. But he talks about that too. He talks about how he competed in worlds, lost, and he wanted to become this coach, and he doesn't believe that he has to be a champion to do it. And it's his whole goal, which is great. And then now my goal is to produce world champions in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Again, vastly different goal from
Right.
people from my generation who never saw. I want to wait a second. I just told you, if we reverse our story here, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place in my neighborhood had word judo/jiu-jitsu in giant black and white letters, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Gracie was not mentioned. And worlds, no. You walk in there, plain white walls, some broken drywall from people being thrown in because they were having full contact MMA Vale Tudo no holds bar challenges in their place.
Wow.
That's what was happening. If you
Yeah.
walked into my If you walked into a Kajukenbo school, same thing, holes in the walls. If you walked into any karate school that's actually practicing the way that I saw them practicing back then, holes in the walls from people, same thing, from
It's a
people
different feel.
fighting, and people weren't doing it. And a lot of people not talk shit about karate and stuff. But going back to what you said, you walked into a karate school back in the 80s. It was a karate school or a taekwondo school. And I want to say now, as the martial arts climate has shifted, now it's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school.
Yeah.
Now, it used to be a karate school, taekwondo school. And if you do your research a little bit, you'll always find out that your Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor, unless they came from Brazil, a large percentage of them are just like us. They did karate, some sort of form of karate or taekwondo, some strike and kempo art. And then they got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and now they're teaching Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Why? Because it's the most marketable. That's what's happening. It's the most marketable right now. So, like, again, but they're coming from a generation that most likely got into it because there was actual fighting happening. But I still feel that this newer generation is getting into it for popularity, for more likes, for more followers. Like you said, the whole goal of collecting and competing. Again, I don't compete anymore. And I've said this before. I've never really competed that much. I'm very honest about my competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In actual Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I've only competed once in gi, and I lost as a white belt. And at that point, I had a lot of MMA experience, but I never competed in gi. And I took on a match, and I lost as a white belt. And I didn't even post the trophy I got because there was only 2 guys in the division. I just didn't see the point of putting a loser trophy up there. And I keep it in the gym. It's right there. I put it right there in the corner as people sign in. And people always ask about it, and they say, "Oh, hey, you got this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got that for losing." I tell them that walking in.
Diligence it. Tell the truth.
Yeah. I got that for losing. It's right there. It's there to remind me that I lost. And did you do another one? I'm like, no, I just didn't have time. Like, that was a little after that I got injured and I didn't compete.
Yeah.
And then officially for competing in, we'll say, grappling, I've only done one no-gi grappling match. It was actually catch wrestling, and I won. And that's the one that got me injured and forced me into retirement. Now, before that, I did a bunch of MMA.
Right.
But my track was more of an MMA track. And I was never chasing a bunch of trophies in grappling. So again, I'm confused by it. My students are confused by it because my students are like, "Why don't you compete? Why don't you compete? Why don't you compete?" I'm like, "I'm 43. I don't have a reason to compete. Like, what?
Yeah.
Get more trophies. You go compete. Get a trophy. I'll take a picture of you. We'll put it on our social media." And that, to me, I think is more important than me winning something at this point, because that doesn't really, me winning something, what's that say? Like, my students winning something, I think, is more important to me.
What you're talking about, you were in it for a completely different reason, and the competition was just something that added to your experience in the martial arts and what you were after. I competed a few times kickboxing, but the guys I trained with and helped get ready for their fights were title holders. I always felt like if I was able to get in the ring with them, get them ready for their fights, and sometimes we go at it. If I can do that, it satisfied my need to know that I could fight if I needed to, you know? And we had some monsters, man. We had some guys that had, like belts, we had some guys that were really, really good, heavyweight, middleweight, and lightweight. And as long as I could get in there and train with them, get them ready for the fights, because when somebody's getting ready for the fights, there's some heavy fight days and then some light fight days. And when we're going at it, I'm not getting my butt handed to me. Okay, that was my thing. I wanted to know that I could get done if I needed to, and that my stuff worked. I didn't need the trophies and the stuff and all that, because just wasn't something that spoke to me. I understand why it does to other people, and maybe that's part of that clout chasing, because they want to do that and they want to do something with it. But it just never was that for me, you know.
And then my question is, what are they? Okay, so they want to do something with it, and this is the part that really gets to me. So you're making a really good point here. My goal, maybe your goal, similar. You're in the military. My goal, I wasn't in the military, but my goal was always self-defense first. Martial arts does not have money in it. That was my
Oh,
biggest warning. My dad, that was the first thing he told me when he saw me starting getting into martial arts. He's like, there's no money in that. There's no money in that. I'm like, well, what about boxing? He's like, you really want to do boxing? Like, right? Like right now, our the neighborhood bodega would let people challenge his son, who was a pro boxer, and he'll pay you $700 if you win, but you have to pay $500 to enter. So you really only get paid. Well, you only get paid $200, right? So like,
yes.
again, he was like, it's a rigged machine. You know, you'll make more money as a mechanic. I understand that you want to do this martial arts thing. Make sure that you're safe. I get it, but be careful. I've never met a martial artist who can pay the bills. Look at your karate friend. I'm not going to mention his name. I love him to death. Rest in peace, because he passed away. But his whole life, he wasn't exactly making. He was a black belt, and he had a lot of knowledge, and he ended up learning all this stuff. But like his whole life, he never really had that much money. And if you read any UFC book, you'll see the same story. So again, I always had that in the back of my head. So I never really pursued it. My friends, just like you, I had one friend who was a professional boxer. When I got to Japan, a lot of the people I trained with were professional fighters. Still are, not were, still are. Every month I meet up with a group of professional fighters, and I feel it's important to spar with them and keep up with them for my own personal experience, but not for any other reason. Now, when I go back to what you just said, because they want to do something with it, my question to those who are watching this thinking the same thing: what are you going to do with it? What exactly is stopping you from doing? Well, I don't know. What exactly are you going to do with it? Because in my opinion, unless you're going to chase down a UFC title in the MMA world, or if you're trying to make money, you're either going to go after the UFC title, because that's what you're trying to do. If what's all the clout chasing for? It's obviously for money, hopefully, because if you're just chasing clout just to have followers, you're not getting paid. That's even worse. Because like, because now you're
Very
just
true.
working for free. Like, so like again, if you are going to be doing it for money, then okay, you're chasing a UFC title, or you're chasing a boxing title, because those are the two avenues to make the most money.
Mhm.
Pro wrestling, but pro wrestling is really shady on how to get into it. I've read a bunch of books. It's really difficult. They have it. There's ways to get into pro wrestling. That world is dangerous as hell and
Yes, it is.
shady. Well, they're all shady as hell, by the way. All three of these industries are shady as fuck. So let's just get that out of the way. But I want to say that because pro wrestling is controlled by specifically two key players, um, getting into pro wrestling is probably the shadiest, because you'll end up in a lifetime contract that doesn't get you anything. So again,
Doesn't make any money.
because let's say those are your two ways. That's what you're chasing. I think I'm trying to wrap my head around what you're chasing here.
Money and
Money,
followers. So it's some
followers.
of them. So some of them actually have a passion to open a school.
Okay, I was about to get to that one.
Yeah, they have a passion to open a school, so they want to create some type of following so they can go look, they can point to that in their advertising and marketing. But again, like you said, for the majority, there isn't any money in the martial arts world. There are very few that make a lot of money. And the thing is, it's peaks and valleys. It doesn't always, the money is not always there unless you are selling your soul. And I hope it don't make too many people mad out there that own martial arts school. Unless you're selling your soul where you're constantly putting out programs and constantly charging money for belts, for promotions, for equipment, for, and I know they have to make money, but when it gets to the point where it's just about making money, that's where I think that these instructors run into problems, you know?
Well, let's
But
do
they're
some.
all trying to build a fan base to draw people in so that they can then make money. I think that's the bottom line of it.
Well, let's do some more statistics. According to Gym Desk, about 50% of martial arts gyms are profitable. Go back to our first statistic. If 5% of martial arts people are practicing, and about 2% are actually teaching, that means of those 2%, oh my God, this number sucks. Of the 2%, 50%, meaning 1%,
Mhm.
are actually running a profitable gym. Well, what's that mean? That means they're making an average annual income between $30,000 and $50,000, depending on location and experience.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
And they say that's profitable.
No offense. no offense to your martial art, but look, I know, because I teach martial arts. Okay, I teach martial arts. There's a reason I'm an entrepreneur. I run an English program and I run a martial arts program, and I've never ran the martial arts program as my first priority. I run the English program in Japan because people are looking for English, and then the martial arts is just a secondary thing on the side. And I know for a fact, I opened the gym. I remember I was like, oh, this is the day. I think the reason it didn't work before is because I had to rent a space. And now that I have my own building, I have a space that I can offer martial arts every day. So I tried to do the whole field of dreams, build it and they will come.
They will
And
come.
I sat there by myself for like a week. They did not come. They did not come. I sat there by myself at the times I was said I would teach 6 days out of the week. I trained on my own, and I think two people came, and I realized real quick. My wife's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Why are you sitting there?
Yeah, you just. So how'd class go? I saw you were training again. I'm like, yeah. And at the time, she didn't mind because I had a fight coming up. So I just made my own little personal fight camp out of it, and maybe one or two people would show up. And then COVID hit. Oh, don't get me started with COVID. What COVID did to the martial arts industry. So
Oh,
again, like $30,000 to $50,000 a year. What? Like I believe McDonald's minimum wage is what? Because they recently raised that. They recently raised that. Okay, let's see. Average yearly salary of a McDonald's
I bet you it's close.
employee. No, that's the scary part. That's the scary part. The average yearly salary. Okay, well, okay, you make more than a McDonald's employee.
Was it 30,000?
30,000. Yeah, if you're a crew member at the bottom ring, it's 22,000 a year. But if you get up there, you get to $35,000 a year. So congratulations. You make well, no, because remember we said the average income was 30 to 50.
30
So
to 50.
depending on where you're at, then depending on where you're at on that scale, and really think about it, you're a business owner. So like,
Yeah.
business owner would be manager at McDonald's,
Yeah.
right?
There's
Average,
60 plus, I think.
I think so.
There's 60 plus.
Manager of a McDonald's, because that's the kind of responsibility you're gonna have. You're not just gonna be sitting at the front desk. You're gonna have to do accounting. You're gonna have to do taxes. Yep, they make more, $58,000 a year, and they don't have to worry about the marketing. You literally
Marketing, out sales, all that stuff is done for you.
Come into work, make sure your employees do their fucking job. But when you're a martial arts instructor, you have the same responsibility, and you have to do your own marketing. And I know right now there's people probably in the comments, and if they're not in the comments, I've seen them online because I've had these arguments with, you can make plenty of money running a martial arts school. My school, and here's the real fucking rough number. My school makes well over 6 figures a year. Okay. I bet that does. Your school makes over 6 figures. I want to say you have about 100 students, maybe, and you're probably making about $100,000, $120,000 a year. Break that down after rent. You're probably making about $50,000, $60,000 a year. After you pay your teenage pimple-faced employee who's saying hi to people as they walk in, you probably make 30 to 40,000. These numbers start going down real quick. They're usually talking about gross. That's the problem, not net. It's like if you put your business hat on real quick, things get real shady. And people get mad at me when I talk about this. Like, I make plenty of money. Look, I've worked with UFC coaches and I know how much money they make. They don't make as much money as you think they do. And they did way more than you did. Way more than you did.
My instructor used to put on fights, and I would come down and help him, kickboxing, MMA fights, all of that. And we would go around to all the vendors and do all that stuff. When everybody's paid, he made very, very little. Now, don't get me wrong, there's schools out there that make close to $1 million a year. They have maybe 2, 3 schools, and they make close to $1 million a year. But that's one out of thousands upon thousands. And they may have the corner of the market. They may be the only school around in that area that offers what they offer, you know? And it doesn't happen everywhere. And then the other schools, which is some of the ones they call McDojos or what have you, well, yeah, they're selling rank, they're selling, they have 500 black belts, and not one black belt actually comes to class. You know what I mean? But I think with these people on with the influencers, what they're doing is they're trying to supplement their income with the online posts that they're putting out. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to add to their income because maybe the school's doing fine to support itself, but they want more. They want more. And then there's a few out there that they actually want to help people. So you always have that mix, but I think the majority of it, if you're online and you're putting out content and you're constantly putting stuff out there and putting yourself out there, you're trying to supplement your income.
Yeah. And then again, nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, that's great. I'm just saying it's confusing to me. That's all.
Absolutely.
And even recently, like, and I know like people can say that what I'm doing here is that. In fact, if you looked at, I got in trouble for this. The YouTube and all my social media accounts punished me for stepping away from that model, because I stepped into that model for a while there. I was doing a different type of influencer video where I'm no longer sharing podcast clips. It was sharing me and my gi and talking about martial arts and stuff, because that was the brand. I was still trying to keep it on the topics I talk about on the show, but there wasn't a connection happening to my podcast. So I immediately dropped it because it put me in this hyper race to pump out content against every other influencer online.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all. Like, how many influencers are there?
Oh boy, that's a huge number.
Online. This is crazy. It's gonna be a big number. So the problem with that, like, I'm sitting there going up against 127 million people. Now, and it was like the algorithm was rewarding me in views, but I wasn't have to tear down the whole podcast. I wasn't have to cancel a podcast.
Wow.
To make time to make those what I call stupid videos, because there's no substance to those videos, in my opinion. In a 1-minute video, all I'm really doing is getting you to ask you a question, but I'm not actually getting you to critically think about anything, because now it's just going to be a million comments, which spurs the content, but the actual content itself is empty. And that's why I was trying to tell people, hey, check out the podcast for like more valuable content, like actual substance. I actually interview martial arts instructors with experience that have been doing this for over 20 years to get you, but no one cares about that. They just want to throw out their opinion. Half the people talking don't even, most of them white belts, maybe a few instructors.
That's the major portion of it.
and then also a percentage of people that have never done martial arts in their life. Right? So like, to me, I stepped away from it because the way I looked at it, I like to have value in everything I do. But
that's what speaks to you. That's what speaks to you. You want your value is that the content has to have some type of meaning to it. It's got to have something behind it. Like you say, you're a social scientist. So that's what you're into it. That's what you're into it for. Others, they'll just pump out stuff. I tell you what, those little videos where your face was everywhere all the time. Every time I got on, your face was there. Seriously. And it made people see you, and maybe it's one people, if you get a million people to look at it, they want to find out who you are. Maybe they'll go to the YouTube. Maybe. But it wasn't something that spoke to you. So, I mean, what do? Do you sell your soul, or do you stick with what you want, what you really like to do?
And so like 64
you wouldn't have been
million.
happy if you kept doing that and had to shut down the podcast.
That's what I mean. And there's 64 million martial arts influencers. So the way I looked at it is, I'm sure out of the 64 million, some of them must be credible, more credible than me. And if the point, I can tell myself in the back of my head, oh, it's because I have this important message and I can help people expose them to the martial arts. Well, it's not on my shoulders. There's another fucking 64 million people that are doing that. There's another 63.9 million people, if I take myself out of the equation, that are doing that. So that job doesn't need to be done by me. I would prefer to do this. I would prefer to do this. And I really don't care how much of a hit I take for not following that model. And it's because of that. Now, if you are going to do it, I do social media coaching. And I told them, hey, if that's what you're going to do, though, you get ready to do it and, and go do the thing. But what I want to argue against is this idea that you even have to do half the stuff that I see these people doing. Like you said earlier, like they're sitting out there competing all the time, and they stop competing to become this influencer. Well, just become an influencer off the bat. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing
True.
that right now. Just throw on a rash guard and just start talking to a camera, and that's what everyone else is doing. I'm just wondering, as this continues, um, in the market, how much more is the social media influencer market going to get saturated? Is one of the things that I also think about.
It's definitely gonna get it's starting to get super not well, it's starting to get saturated, but when it starts to get moisture like super saturated, when there's so much out there, you're gonna start to see, well, I'm pretty sure it's happening already. People start to get hurt trying to do techniques and movements when they don't know the linking and the protections that come with some advanced techniques. And the thing it's going to be too far gone to even pull it back. But you're going to start seeing people get hurt more and more. I see it sometimes now
Oh, I see
because
it all the time. If you look it up, you'll see a bunch of it. Like
yeah,
every time you see a video of someone competing and they got injured, most likely that person who got injured is from this generation of people that are trying to do everything we just mentioned at the beginning of this podcast.
yeah, and they
Most
don't know.
likely, there's like a high percentage. I can't
I'll
come
bet.
up with I can't come up with a number off the top of my head. But if all the statistics that we just said are true, then right, if that's how many people, right, if I grab some of the numbers I just said, if it's estimated that 64 million people are doing social media stuff, right, like that's what they're doing, and we go back to the number earlier that we started off with. Oh wow, that's crazy though. So that number doesn't make sense. Oh no. So that means that 334 million people are doing and this is the United States, just to make it easy. 334 million people are doing martial arts. Of the 334 million, 64 million of those people are doing it for online influencing. So it's actually a pretty small percentage.
It, it is, but
It's actually a pretty small percentage.
it is a small percentage, but there's still a lot of people. And the thing
That's
we're
a lot of
not
people.
and here's the thing. That's counting a snapshot at one time, and this is revolving. This is
Oh yeah,
constant.
yeah.
This is constant. And that number is going up, down, up, down, up, but it's constant over months, days, years. That's a lot of people that the martial arts is touching, but that are doing jujitsu. You know what I mean? Well, martial arts in general, they're come and go. So people are getting hurt, people are replenishing that number as people age and come in and come out. So it's one of those things, quite a lot of people, because most people don't make it past the beginner
Blue,
stage anyway.
most like
Yeah,
blue Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt.
blue belt.
Yeah, most people don't make it past 2 years. That's really what normally happens. It's 2 years in, something happens, and you have to ask yourself, is this your life? Is this what you want to do for life? And then you have to really ask yourself why you're doing it. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not easy. And
No,
those people now these days, people want things a little bit easier. It's okay to do something strenuous for a period of time, and then I'll take and do something else. So yeah, it's one of those things where yeah, we're right on point, I think, with it as far as the clout chasing and all that good stuff is that they're trying to get followers, supplement their income, make a little money, try to become famous. Everybody wants to be famous nowadays. And yeah, it's the dollar sign, man. And but like I said, people are like you said are getting hurt, are gonna get hurt, and as the market becomes super saturated with it, it's gonna get out of control. And then as we're seeing now with jiu-jitsu schools, they popped up everywhere, and then now a lot of them are gone.
yeah, it's starting to, it's like a giant wave, and the water is starting to recede again.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
of those jiu-jitsu schools are starting to close up shop. A lot of them, but you know, if you've been following martial arts for as long as I have, I've seen my local taekwondo school go from karate to taekwondo, to
yep.
kempo to jiu-jitsu, and a lot of time this is either the same person or the same people, like the same students, group
Hmm.
of people trying to keep that school open with some other art, boxing or MMA or whatever, and they keep cycling through everything. And then they open and they close and they open and they close. This is nothing fucking new.
Nope.
This is
No.
nothing new. This is nothing new. This has been happening in martial arts even before the internet. So, like, I guess if you've stuck around this conversation this long, if you're not God for whatever amount, like I don't know how many people will watch this. I never know it. This will be on the internet forever anyway. And you never know how many people watch this. What I want you to ask yourself, why are you doing martial arts? Seriously ask yourself this question. I have a very easy answer for me. Claude already mentioned it earlier why he's doing it for himself. I do it for life, not because of clout. I have this show that I created, and it was mostly to network with other martial artists. I still strongly believe of the, what's the word, a controversial opinion that you really should have your main job. You should have your main source of income. I have a family, I have to put food on the table, and I have my main source of income. And then some people will argue to you that you should chase your passion and all those fucking, just believe in yourself, fucking motivational quotes while looking at yourself in the mirror and visualize whatever the secret. I can go off on a tangent on pop psychology quotes, but pop psychology quotes don't put food on the table. So what I want to say, and I've said this to people before, and I'll say this again. I've said this to all my guys that wanted to do MMA, like, that's great. It's great to chase your passions. I don't want to kill your dreams. That's what keeps you motivated to keep doing that. But at the same time, you should try to find something that you know is going to pay your bills that you don't hate. You might not love it, okay? You might love martial arts. I love surfing and martial arts. I love it. I absolutely love it. I could do that every day. And if you told me I got paid 6 figures to do it, it would be heaven for me. I would just be, I wasn't even working. I'm practically living a life. I'm living the life, as people would say. But looking at all the numbers we just talked about and being realistic, it's easier to find something that you don't hate. For me, it was English teaching. I don't hate English teaching. I hated being an auto mechanic. I hated being a tow truck driver. There's certain jobs I did in my life. I hated working in retail. There's certain jobs in my life that I hated. No offense to people that do those jobs, because you, on the flip side of this weird equation, I've met people that loved working on cars, loved being an auto mechanic, loved working in retail, loved all that stuff that I hated. All the stuff I just said I hated, they loved it. I mean, so like, you never know what you might not hate that can put food on the table. And if you can do that and still have time to do martial arts, then it's kind of like gambling. Like, if that's your thing, if you wanted to make extra money off martial arts, then look at it with the smart gambler's mindset, right? I'm going to do this thing that makes my main money, but I'm not going to spend all my money on lottery tickets. But I'm going to buy a lottery ticket every day. It only costs like $2 for a lottery ticket. So I'm going to spend my $2 for my lottery ticket every day. And to be honest, at least with martial arts, it's doing something physically for you. I think it's a better gamble. It's a better gamble than buying a lottery ticket. So like, invest into that. That's how I say it. What do you think?
Absolutely.
What are your final thoughts?
Finding something that you, like you said, that you don't hate, that can foot the bill, and while you pursue your passion, is fantastic. If you have an opportunity to do your passion for your as your life skill goal and the thing that makes you money, great, do that. But you need to acquire some skills along the way. If you did jump 100 miles an hour into it, go back to school, pick up a trade, pick up something that, if that starts to not be the main thing that is sustaining you, you have something else along with it. Okay? Because the martial arts world is a fickle world, and less than 1% will be that school and that instructor or whatever. And you could be phenomenal. I'm not saying anybody isn't, but you've got to have something in your pocket. You know what I mean? That goes along with that skill of you teaching, what have you. There's got to be something else that goes along with that. If online being an influencer is that backup plan,
No, you can't even say that with a serious face.
I can't. If that's,
I try. I'm trying to meet them where they're at. I'm trying to meet you where you at, but it's hard.
if that's your backup plan, you need to find a new backup plan.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
gotta be part. That's gotta be another side plan that goes along with your main plan.
that's like a
If it hit,
backup to the
yeah,
backup.
exactly. If it hits, that's fantastic. Okay, but if it doesn't, you need to have some things set up for yourself. That's all. And maybe I'm old or what have you, but it's always great to plan and have your own behind covered.
And again, like again, and I can't exactly get mad at these people for chasing clout. I mean, technically, that's what I do with my podcast. Technically speaking, that's what I do with my podcast. I'm just going after the idea of how they're doing it. Like, again, that's what I'm going after is how are you doing this?
Yeah.
If you were just doing it for yourself, then there's a lot of questions that come up. And then the other problem, not problem, I'll say this, adding to what you're saying, going back to my lottery ticket analogy, that's why I do this show once a week. I used to do it once a month. I pumped it to once every 2 months, twice a month, and then it was 3 times a month. Now it's once a week, and it was because there was a following that came place.
Yes.
And as the following came, I decided to go. But then once it started telling me that I had to do it every day, that's when I was like,
Yeah.
because I do not make enough money. YouTube does not give me enough money to be putting off other things that need to get done to do this. I love doing this, but this is my little lottery ticket. Once a week, I do this. And if it hits, great. If it doesn't, well, the cool thing is I get to meet Claude. And here, okay, now we're gonna, okay. I know I said 30 minutes time to say this. So I met Claude, I met Mitch, I met Glenn. I can start naming out names of people that you probably don't know, but I met a bunch of key figures in the martial arts community that later in real life, when I went to a tournament, I got to meet, and it went beyond me, and I got to help the actual martial arts community. That's what happened at the tournament we went to. They needed judges, they needed people to oversee certain divisions. And because of my network, I was able to tap in to people I knew. And since I've talked to them because of the podcast, they were credible. It wasn't just someone who I just met. And I was able to take this to another step to help an actual process that's happening in real life. It wasn't just about me. And I think that's the part that's a little bit different than a lot of these people that I see online. I don't know. And I don't know if that sounds arrogant or egotistical, but I guess if you're gonna do it, the reasons I do it are very different from what I think other people are doing it for. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of them feel that they are trying to help their martial arts community in some way, But really, at the end of the day, this was a lottery ticket that I decided to invest to, but I don't invest all my time into it. I do not invest all my time into it. There's no way. So if you are going to do it that way, just be smart about it. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Social Jello with Angelo podcast. Claude, not Cloud. Thank you for coming out.
Fantastic. I had a blast.
One of these once a week, and we'll catch you all next time. Oh, also, don't forget to drop us what you think in the comments. What do you think? Is becoming a social media influencer, are they chasing clout, or is there something us old dogs are just not seeing? Drop in the comments.
This has been a Social Jello production. If you're interested in being on the show, feel free to reach out. Just email me at socialjello@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow me on social media, Instagram, Social Jello, Facebook, Social Jello with Angelo, or follow me on my personal page under Angelo Ferrer. LinkedIn, search Angelo Ferrer. YouTube, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, make sure to check out my YouTube channel, Social Jello with Angelo YouTube channel. And wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform, make sure to follow and subscribe and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time.